The reason why you find in Kenya the oldest banks in Kenya, they are national banks in terms of they were previously owned by the state. It was because of the barrier of entry. The barrier of entry of starting a bank back then could only be managed by the sovereign, which is the country or which is the government. But also the confidence. There are areas, for example, in banking around that time when it was a novelty, that no one could actually trust an individual person as an investor with their own money when they held ownership of the bank. And those are the reasons why we find, for example, National Bank, Kenya Commercial Bank had to be started by government that time because of those reasons. But those reasons have been overtaken by events. And the reason why I say so, Honorable Speaker, there is a lot of inefficiency in government-controlled companies in sectors that are booming. Take, for example, Consolidated Bank. Consolidated Bank is over 98% owned by GOK in various forms. But if you look at a bank like Equity Bank is newer than Consolidated Bank. But Consolidated Bank is actually having now net capital as we talk now, when Equity Bank now have shareholders' funds of over 300 billion Kenya shillings, which is core capital. And their profitability, again, are very diverse. So those strategic decisions back then could not hold today. The strategic decision of the US government investing in a chip-making company in aid of AI in the name of Intel is a today agenda, and therefore it is relevant. The reason for the US government investing in American lithium yesterday for a stake of 5% and also taking some of their risks out of where they are mining lithium, Honorable Speaker, is also based on the current global economy, strategic decision making. And therefore, we must always audit and find what is it that is making strategic sense, what is it that is not making strategic sense, so that we can offload as much as possible to the private sector to do what they know best. Honorable Speaker, let me talk about how we should spend the money. The previous agenda was about Kenya Pipeline. And Honorable Speaker, my take would be this. For any company that goes through a listing, through an IPO, we must always reserve around 5 to 10% of the proceeds to invest back in other entities, and especially in alternative ways of offering the same service. What do I mean? As we offload any company, then you must take this money, create a venture capital, and invest in other current growth kind of institutions around the same sector. Green energy, and any other thing around power sector, for example, or energy sector. So that as you offload this, you are incubating some others. So that you don't get a time when you've already offloaded your entire portfolio. Honorable Speaker, let me talk something about the current capital markets, because this is very important even for the agenda we had about Kenya Pipeline, and even this bill. Honorable Speaker, capital market is everything about international capital flow. The US, for example, capital markets in equity side alone is double the size of the US GDP, because all the companies listed in the US, their valuation cumulatively is around 62 trillion US dollars. In the income sectors, in the fixed income side, it is over 55 trillion. What do I mean, Honorable Speaker? If you compare the same with our capital markets here, it is too small, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, we must make every effort to make it more bigger and attractive. But this is the catch, Honorable members. I am one of the people who would never actually vouch for the listing of Kenya Pipeline. And I'll give you a very practical reason. The current NSE in Kenya has been bearish this year, going up. But the companies listed are still grossly undervalued. And I can tell you without blinking of an eye, Honorable Speaker, this issue of Kenya Pipeline will bring a lot of excitement. Kenyans will buy in the IPO. But after the announcement of the financial results in February for the full year, the share company will collapse. And the share price will collapse. And this is the reason. The current investor in the NSC are not buying assets. they are buying revenue. They are buying the bottom line. What do I mean? Look, for example, a company like Kenya Power. Kenya Power has a valuation, the entire Kenya Power has only a valuation, a market cap of only 27 billion. The reason I use the name only is in comparative to the assets. It has assets of over 350 billion shillings. And it's a company that's making net revenues of 20 billion, but the valuation is 27 billion. Now, a company like Kenya Re, a company has net assets of over